Hey, what's up, people? Today, I've got this old Apple IIe that I would like to see if I can get back up and running. And as far as I'm aware, there really should be nothing that's like catastrophically wrong with it. This machine was still working the very last time I used it, which was like back in the sometime in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's not a machine that I had since I was a kid. This was actually a machine that I bought at a thrift store for like $40, complete with the monitor and the disk drives and everything. So absolutely cheap at the time, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I don't have the monitor that I originally bought it with at the thrift store. I had to acquire another one because the one that did come with this, I kind of lost it to time. So uh, I pretty much have the complete set here. So as far as I'm aware, it shouldn't really need a whole lot. I do want to replace the refuzz inside the power supply, so I've already removed it, and that's why I have it sitting here on this table. The case is a bit dirty. You can kind of tell that it's been kind of sit and stored for a very long time, so it does not look the greatest. The keyboard could use a bit of a cleaning, and as well as like all the case. The drives, they do have a little bit of like crud on them and stuff, so those could also use a bit of a cleaning. As far as alignment on the drives goes, I have no idea what sort of condition it's in, and unfortunately, I do not have any software on discs that I can pop into them to test them out. So that's going to be a bit of a question. But if I can at least get the machine to power up and display stuff, and we can kind of like mess around with it, that would at least be a good sign that it's that things are mostly okay. And I've already actually taken the power supply apart so that I could identify the replacement capacitors that I was going to need for it. And I actually already have those on hand. I've already ordered them like ahead of time just so that I would have them ready. I wasn't actually sure if refuzz were used inside the monitor. They're notorious for going bad in these old power supplies. So I decided to, before I would do anything else, that I would check the monitor itself. I opened it up and I looked inside just to make sure that there wasn't anything that was going to need replacement. And to my surprise, this monitor was like absolutely super clean inside, almost like it hadn't really gotten much use or anything. And the outside of the case and everything is actually like in really good condition. It's very clean. So I was like really surprised about that. There's like hardly any dust in there. I have a feeling the majority of the dust that was inside of this monitor is just from me having it sit around like inside my garage. So yeah, it's crazy. It looks like it's in really good shape. As far as the computer actually goes, there are a few other things that I am going to need to do in order to get it to sort of in decent shape. The as you can see, the case is not attached to the bottom chassis. There's a few of these clips missing. They're supposed to. They're the little. Let's go ahead and focus on that. There's these little clips that are supposed to be in these little positions that the screws from the bottom are supposed to screw into. I mean, that also means that I do not have the bottom screw, so I'm going to have to find some replacements for that, which is not a big deal. There's also 3 up in the front that are missing, so I'm missing a total of 3, 4, 5 of those, and there's only 4 on there, so I might even have a bin where I have some of these clips stored in that. I might have some of the original ones that are missing from this. I'm not entirely sure, so I guess we'll find out about that. Inside the chassis, it's just a little dusty in there. Not too bad. I'll probably end up removing the board from this bottom plate, maybe giving it a bit of a dusting. As you can see, the keyboard, it's not terrible, but it does need to be cleaned. It's got a lot of dust buildup all up in there. So on the bottom of it, though, the 4 rubber feet are all missing. 2 of them appear to have just completely fallen off, and 2 of them got super sticky and like really gross. So I just put some clear tape over those just to prevent smearing it all over the place, because I would set this down on like a table or whatever, and then when I went to move it, this would all be stuck to the surface and it would smudge and leave a bunch of like nasty sticky crap all over the place. So I'll have to clean those off, get some replacement rubber feet, but those are not a big deal. This disk drive is also missing the screws, so I'll have to find some replacements for that. You can see the case just comes off. Which way does it go? Oh, go towards back like that. The inside's a little bit dusty, so I'll probably give that a bit of a cleaning as well. And like I said, I don't have any discs that I can test inside this thing, so I'll just clean them up, at least get them in decent shape, and If I do get some discs, then I'll be able to try them out and see how it does. So this one does have the screws in place and everything, so I'm assuming that this one's probably going to be a lot cleaner inside than this other one is. Got a few little cobwebs up in there, but yeah, I should probably open this up and clean it as well. The feet starting to slide off, so it's probably going to be a good idea to replace these as well before they start getting all nasty and sticky. I'm kind of assuming that the ones that they used on this drive are probably the same as the ones that they used on the bottom of the main machine, so I should probably replace those. Just a quick word of caution before we open up this power supply. Do be warned that there could potentially be high voltages stored inside some of the capacitors. So these power supplies can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So, you're kind of working on these at your own risk. But with that said, there's a total of 8 screws on the case that hold this bottom plate to the rest of the case. So this is just able to lift up like that. And there we go. It releases it, and now we have access to the inside. So it would be these 2 capacitors, the ones that are storing the charge if they haven't bled their voltage out yet. Here is a grommet that was supposed to be attached to this cable, just in case you were wondering why this was so loose. I removed this because I needed to be able to pull the board out so I could see if both of the capacitors underneath there were the same, and to get the pitch of the pins so that I could get the proper capacitors. And the only thing holding this board in place is 1, 2, 3, and 4 screws. And those are about like a number 1 Phillips. So we got a screwdriver for it, and it's going to go ahead and remove these 4 screws so I can get the board out. These do have some split washers on them, so make sure you don't lose those or get one lodged in somewhere inside the power supply where it could potentially cause a short later on. Just want to be careful, make sure that they do come out with the screws. You pull them out just like that. So I'm going to set those aside. And the 4th one. So this power supply, I should be able to just slide it out. I already did once before. There we go. So I just need to tilt it up enough so that I can just have access to the capacitors. So those 2 pins are going to be one of the capacitors, and then the other capacitor is that pin and that pin. So I'm just going to desolder those and get the 2 old REFAs out. And these are actually not in terrible shape. They look physically okay. But at this point in time, these are known to potentially go up in smoke. And apparently they're very stinky. I've never had the experience of, or I've never experienced that myself. So what I'll probably do is after I remove these, we'll set them up in a way where they're, I can plug them into mains, and I'll probably do it outside or something just in case they do go up in smoke. And we'll see if they fail because, yeah, they're known to do that. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. Okay, the solder sucker should be nice and hot, so let's go ahead and remove these. All right, so we're going to be taking these REFAs and we're going to be replacing them with... Wait, what's that? REFAs. So when I ordered these capacitors, I ordered them on DigiKey, and the brand actually said Kemet when I placed the order. And when I got them, I realized that they're still REFA branded. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. I guess maybe Kemet owns that name now or something. But these are more modern capacitors, and they're rated X2, so these should be totally fine, as replacements or anything. It's not like we're taking these out and replacing them with the exact same thing. There should be like far from it. So there we are. These actually look pretty nice and clean. As you can see, these look all kind of yellowed and discolored. So I'm sure that inside there's probably evil things going on, and these are potentially internally shorted. You can kind of see how the plastic there looks like is that correct? No, maybe that's just part of the molding. Yeah, inside of there you can kind of see like some crackling. So I don't know. Maybe that's part of the stuff like going bad. So we'll see what happens with these when we power them up. But for now, we'll set them aside. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and reinstall these in place of the old ones. And on these boards, it looks like they've actually allowed for two different pitches of the pins. So you can actually have one that's like a smaller, or like a closer pin pitch. I got the wider ones just to make them match what was already on there. Didn't really matter too much. So it's going to stretch those out a little bit just so they don't fall out like that. All right, now I can go ahead and solder these in place, and then I'll trim the leads. I'm going to push on the capacitor itself just so that it's nicely bottomed out on the board. All right, so there's one pin. There's a second pin. All right, let's take care of the other capacitor. All right, so that's it for that. Just give these a clip, clip, clip. And 3 and 4. And that's it. We're done with the power supply. So as far as I'm aware, this really should not really need any more service. If anything, maybe the electrolytics could be replaced. So for the time being, I'm just going to go ahead and put this back together. And we can test the computer and see if it comes alive. There we go. Pop that back in place. And now I can put the bottom cover back on. All right, that's all 8 screws for the power supply. And then I've got the other 4 that actually attach the power supply to the rest of the chassis from the bottom. But for the time being, since I still want to clean the actual chassis itself, I'm just going to set these aside. I'm not going to put them on. So now let's go back to the main machine. We'll hook it up to the monitor and we'll see what happens. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pop the power supply back in place. And I just realized that I actually don't have a bunch of the screws that are supposed to hold the motherboard to this plate. So that's great. I'll have to find something for those as well. But for now, let's just go ahead and try this out and see if it's going to power up or not. I'm just going to make sure that the power supply is in the off position. It is. And I'm going to plug in this video cable to the video out. That doesn't feel very secure. Okay, all right, let's see. Let's go ahead and turn the monitor on so that at least can warm up for a sec. Okay, I hear the monitor whining, so that's good. And everything looks okay, I think. All right, let's try to power it up and see if it comes to life. Here we go in 3, 2, 1. I did a little bit of clicking, but then it came on. That light's on. I'm not seeing anything on the display. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, this video output connector is just not making very good contact, so that's going to need some work. Yeah, it's like really loose. It looks like the ground is just not... Yeah, that's not working very good. But there we go. We got the Apple II logo, so get that to stay. Uh-oh. Something's going on. I wiggled the motherboard and it, like... Hope something's not shorting. All right, I think let's go ahead and fix this video connector because without having a stable image, we can't really see what else is going on. So let's go ahead and fix that first. And here's the board off the chassis. So as you can see, a little dusty on the surface. The bottom looks pretty spotless, so definitely much better looking on the bottom. And the cool thing is that since all of these chips are on sockets, I should probably go through, remove them all, maybe spray some deoxit on the contacts, and then reseat all the ICs. And that way I can be sure that I don't, or hopefully be sure that I don't have any contact issues between the pins of each IC and each socket. And as you can see, let's go ahead and zoom in on this video connector. You can see how loose that is. So this outer casing that's supposed to be the ground isn't touching the mounts right there. So that's why when I was wiggling it, I could get to make contact. All of this stuff looks pretty tarnished as well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll just desolder it off the board, clean all of the surfaces up like really well. And then what I'm going to do is on the back, I'm going to solder the part of the RCA that sticks out to the rest of the casing. Then that way I should get like a really good contact on that ground. I'm going through and trying to pull all the ICs off the board so that I can clean up the sockets. And a lot of these ICs I will actually be able to test because a lot of these are just like regular 7400 series logic. And I'm using this tool that I have that's supposed to be like a chip puller, but it's such a piece of crap. The the two little grabbers on the end keep bending outwards, and I'm having to constantly straighten them back out. I gotta get myself a better tool. It's just something I kind of had around. I don't normally pull a lot of ICs like this, but I'm trying to do it with this thing. It's just being a pain in the butt. So I'll continue getting all the ones that I can out. For some of the other ones, I may need to get like a small screwdriver or something and just kind of pry them out. But yeah, so it's just a little bit of a hassle, but there we go. I went through and checked all the 7400 series logic ICs and all the memory ICs using a combination of my Mini Pro programmer. I was able to test the majority of the 7400 series logic chips. I mostly did that because it was easier to go through the menu and just type in what I wanted, to quickly check the chip. Unfortunately, this one did not support testing the 7400 or 74F109 chip, the 7400 LS251, and the 7400 LS154. However, the Retro Chip Tester Pro did support these three ICs, so I was able to check them, and all of these chips passed. Now, when I went to go check the RAM, at first I was getting a few problems. I was getting a read error on the first one, and then I think on the second one when it was checking the chip to see if it was, functional. But it turned out just me reseating it in the socket. I was using this decoupling socket. I think the pins must have just been still a little bit tarnished or something, even though I tried to clean them beforehand. But once I reseated them and just sort of rubbed them a little bit in the socket, all of the chips passed, so it looks like all the RAM is good. The only chips I can't really test are all the, the other major 40-pin ones. But I have no reason to believe that any of these should be bad. Oh, I actually just remembered that the other add-in boards do have more chips on them, so I should probably test those as well. A lot of them are 7400 series logic. There's the 80 column card that does have a bunch of RAM chips on it. Should probably go get that. Yeah, so here's the drive card. This, with the exception of, I think it's got 2 proms there. Yeah. And then the rest are 7400 series logic. So I could at least check those just to be thorough. But like I said, I don't believe that there's any reason to, or I don't believe there's any problems with those cards. This is the 80 column expansion card. Again, this one has, oh no, these are just 7400 series. And then the memory. So I could check this one as well, just to see and make sure that there are not going to be any problems. The only other card that was in this machine was the parallel card. Now, unfortunately, this one, the ICs are not socketed. But, I mean, I don't know if I want to bother, really. It's not like I plan to be using this card. Oh, I just realized these pins are all tarnished. I'll probably need to give this card a pretty good cleaning also. Yeah, but anyways, I'm not too concerned with this printer card at the moment, so I could just leave this out and not worry about it. These two, however, I should probably check just to be on the safe side. So I'll probably just do that now before I continue reassembling the PC to see, or the computer to see if it'll work. I've got all the chips from the memory expansion card tested, and they all passed. And I also tested the chips that I could test from the drive card, and they all passed. I cannot test these. These are also from the drive card. However, there's an NE556 on that drive card that has really tarnished pins. So I guess it's a good idea that I'm taking these all apart and trying to give them a good cleaning. I'm going to clean all that stuff off of them. And like I said, I'm also going to clean the sockets. So that's one of the only ICs that looks that bad. I was hoping I could get the pins on this chip cleaned up using just some deoxit and an acid brush. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to, you can see on this side, it just doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot. It did clean up some of it, but it's having a hard time of getting most of it off. However, if I do use this fiberglass pen, which I honestly don't really like using very much just because it leaves little fragments and stuff all over the place, this actually cleans them up really well. As you can see right there, just a little bit of light scrubbing, and I've already got a lot of that tarnish off it. So, looks like I can finish it off with this pen. I'm just going to try to make sure that I get all the little bits that break off onto this paper towel. But yeah, that's doing the trick. Look at how shiny those pins look compared to the other side. So I'm also going to do the inside because obviously we want to make sure we have contact. And I think a lot of the sockets on a lot of these IC sockets are only single wipe, and it looks like they're only mostly on the inside. So I really want to make sure that the inside of the pins are nice and clean so that they'll make good contact. But yeah, look at that. All right, so I've got the board completely repopulated. I've hopefully cleaned out those sockets sufficiently with that they're not going to cause any problems anytime soon. And I've already removed the video connector, the RCA, and I've got that sitting right there. So let's go ahead and deal with this now. I do want to clean it all up, get all of this stuff that's on it off, and then we'll try to solder it from the rear like I had mentioned. And I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to soak some of this really fine wet dry sandpaper and just going to rub it on the outside. Not really wanting to remove a lot of material. I just want to clean up the connector a little bit, just so that we're sure that it makes good contact and remove a lot of that crud that's on the outside. You can already see that looks a lot better already. I think it's plated, so like I said, I don't want to go too crazy. And even this little amount should be more than enough. So yeah, that definitely looks better already. All right, I'm just going to spray this with some IPA. I guess take a small brush, and clean the inside while I'm at it. Didn't really seem like we had a contact issue on the inside, though. It was mostly on the outside. It looks pretty good in there. I know it's kind of hard to see on camera, but that inside terminal actually looks pretty good. All right, I'm going to take some compressed air, and I'm just going to blow everything off of this. Okay, there's one small issue here that I'm going to have to deal with. So when I try to solder this, I want to try to keep that pin in the middle as straight as possible, even though it is a little flexible, so it's not like it's a big deal if it doesn't solder on completely straight. But I want to try something. So I'm going to try to hold this centered as much as possible. I think it's actually already a little bit bent, but I'd say maybe like right there. I'm going to see if I can take this plier and just sort of pinch that where it's been kind of like rounded outwards, the RCA connector. Let's see if I can pinch it and maybe have it hold on a little bit stronger in that particular spot. Nah, that didn't quite work. I was kind of hoping that it would sort of like pinch it up against the rest of the casing, but it didn't really do that. So never mind, that didn't work. Okay, let's go ahead and try to solder this on then. So I'm just going to put a bit of flux. Okay, and let's see if we can solder this. I'm going to try to heat up the outer casing first. I sort of want it to flow underneath. Okay, that's soldered it there, but I want to get a little bit more around the perimeter of that connector just so it doesn't easily break off again. Okay, there we go. So some of the solder actually managed to sort of sneak its way onto the opposite side, but that means that it filled out underneath the surface of the connector. So this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So that actually turned out pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and put it back on the board then, and we can go test the computer out again. All right, I got the board placed back into the chassis. I've only put the 80 column card back in and the disc 2 card. And I've hooked up the video, so theoretically it should work. Unless I manage to bork something. Let's see. All right, here we go. I'm going to hit the power switch now. Hey, I didn't kill anything. So that's good. Uh-oh. Something's up. It keeps doing this. Is it the reset, is it? Like I was just typing some random stuff on the keyboard. And it did that. But it comes up just fine. Wait, is that the connector? Okay, that's still the connector. I guess this RCA isn't grabbing it very well, but all right, there we go. We got still not great. Okay, that looks like it's the inside terminal of the RCA connector. So, all right, that can be fixed. That's not a big deal. But why does it sometimes reset is what I don't understand. Tap it around to see if something gets it to act up. All right, so nothing crazy seems to be happening. I don't understand why sometimes it seems to do that reset. I was tapping around on the board and I couldn't get it to act up again. So I've hooked up the 2 drives to the disc 2 card, and I'm going to turn it on and see what happens. Yeah, I don't think anything crazy is going to happen, but let's find out. So here we go. All right, so it's trying to boot from that first drive, but there's nothing in there. Is it going to give up? I don't exactly remember how this thing used to work. So that's just continuously going. I don't think that's right. All right, I think something's not right because I switched the drives so that this was on the disc 1 connector, and it just like continuously runs, and I don't think it's supposed to do that, but I'm going to look it up because like I said, I honestly do not remember. All right, so I looked up some information. Apparently the drives light on and spinning like that is normal function. So if I turn it on though, and I hit control and this stupid wire, still no good. All right, what? Oh my goodness. All right, so this video connection is driving me nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pick. I'm going to shove it right there in between the casing or the inside insulator and just sort of bend that in where the metal is split like that. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. All right, just like that. So now when I put the RCA cable inside, it should hopefully make a lot better contact and I won't be having video issues anymore. All right, I think that's much better. Let's see. Yeah, that's way better. It's not cutting out anymore. All right, cool. So yeah, if we hit control and reset, we get to the prompt and this stops spinning. So it looks like it is working fine. Now I just got to find out what I can type in here to do something. Because, like I said, I've got nothing else to run on it, so I can't really do much as far as like trying to load something. All right, so it looks like some of the graphical issues are not entirely the RCA connector. It looks like I've got that one solved. But while I wasn't recording, the screen went almost completely green, and it appears that there's a problem with the contrast potentiometer. As you can see right there, I'm like moving it up and down, and it's just all over the place. So it looks like that's going to need a cleaning. I'll probably just spray some deoxit on it and work it around a little bit. But if I put it all the way down, we can still see the cursor kind of blinking down at the bottom. And so, I mean, otherwise it seems to be working okay. So I found some information that says that if I hold down the closed Apple while I'm turning the power on to the unit, it should go into some sort of self-test. So let's see if that works. I'm going to turn it off, hold down the button, and power it on. Oh, there we go. I don't know what all it does, but it's doing something. It says kernel okay. Seems like a like a positive thing. I guess that's all it's gonna do. I guess so. That was if I hit enter. Nothing. Escape. Reset. Okay, that takes us back to the. All right. So I saw another one that says that if you hold down both of the buttons, the open apple and the closed apple, that you should get a different set of tests. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm gonna hold those two down. Power it on. It's making a high-pitched sound. I hope that's normal. And it stopped and it says kernel okay, so I guess that's fine. Since I haven't played with this thing in so long, I remember basically like nothing. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe that we're in a basic prompt. So I think we could like type in some basic commands. Let's see if I remember anything. What was it like? Let's see, we can do 10. Print. I don't know. It smells. Let's see if that works. 10, 20. Oh, shoot. How do you go back? To 10? Does this work? Run? Nope. Or is it 30? And? On 10? Nope. All right, I looked up some stuff. So, looks like I have to do, let's see, new, and then give it a name. Smells. Nope. Oh, it's just, I just have to type in new, okay? All right, so now we can do 10. Oops. 10. Print. It's only smells. Keep messing up here. It's kind of hard to type at an angle, so I don't block the screen. There we go. Okay, that's fine. Let's see, 20. Go to 10. And do I have to do and? I don't see. I guess not. Now I should be able to type run. Hey, it worked. How do I stop it? I guess control reset. Okay, that works. All right, well, since I don't have any software that I can just load on this thing, I'll look up some, like a basic program that maybe some, like small game or something that I can find. I'll type it all in, and then we'll try to run it and see if it works. All right, people. I think I need to hold my jets or cool my horses, if you'd rather, and focus on cleaning the thing first and putting it back together before I actually start messing with it any further. It's just that this thing has not been powered up in quite literally over about like 20 years. So seeing it working again, you know, it's just, I got a little too excited and I wanted to start messing with it right away. But yeah, we got to give it a good cleaning. I did notice that the keyboard sometimes will kind of double register on some of the keys, so like it's got some bounce or whatever. So I need to take that apart, give it a good cleaning, clean the rest of the casing and all that stuff. I think that the problem that I was having with the power wasn't anything related to like motherboard or anything like that. I think maybe the power switch, just from not being powered up for so long, maybe had like some tarnish or something on it, or to the point where it just wasn't making very good contact, because it doesn't seem to be doing it anymore now that I've sort of like power cycled it several times. So I'm thinking maybe that's what it was. As far as the drives go, I do want to clean them up a bit. I don't know that I really want to go through and like do anything crazy inside of these. Like I said, I don't have any software that I can even test in them. So whether or not they're working correctly, I have no idea. Yeah, we'll at least make the drives look a little prettier than they look right now. And then the only other thing I need to take care of is this contrast knob on the monitor because like we saw, it's like pretty flaky. So, yep, we'll get this all cleaned up and then we can play around with it some.
Several days later.
Well, all right. Regarding this machine, I think we're about as good as it's going to get. Spent the last few days working on it, so let me walk you through like everything I pretty much had to do. I started by stripping the chassis off everything that could easily be removed from it, including the keyboard. The speaker turned out to have a couple issues with it, one being that it was coated with metal shavings, which I was able to easily remove using a strong magnet wrapped in a napkin. The other issue is a hole in the cone, which I believe would probably have been done by silverfish at some point. They seem to love munching on paper products. Unfortunately, I don't have an identical replacement speaker, but this one still works okay otherwise, and this thing isn't like a high-end audio system or anything, so whatever, it's going to stay. I also removed the springy metal contacts on the rear so that I wouldn't damage it when I turned the chassis over to clean the bottom. On the bottom, I had to clean all the sticky rubber pad residue that was left over from the original pads. Thankfully, it all cleaned up pretty well, and although it did take a bit of elbow grease to remove, there appeared to be no damage under the surface of the finish. I also gave the inside of the chassis a good cleaning by wiping the surface. Some areas are a bit discolored, which is fine. It won't affect functionality in any way. It's particularly noticeable near the area where the power supply sits. With the chassis fairly clean, I repopulated what I could back onto it. I managed to round up some screws that were all matching for the main board to hold it down properly. Look at how clean that board looks now. The power supply has the screws come in from the bottom to hold it down. Choo-choo, here comes the 80 column card. To better get to the pots in the monitor to clean and lubricate them, I had to open it back up. And not only did I spray the contrast pot on the side, but I figured I might as well do the 3 in the rear. These are for the vertical sync, the vertical size, and the brightness. I knew the keyboard was going to take a while to deal with, and so I left it for last. It took a few hours to fully take it apart and clean everything as well as I could. I had to desolder all the switches off the board, but the solder sucker made relatively quick work of it. The switches are held onto the front plate with some tabs that can be pushed inwards to release it. Once released, the switch can be opened up by prying a couple tabs on each side. This will allow the inner casing to be pulled up and out, revealing all the internals. Unfortunately, a few of the switches had tabs that were already broken before I had even tried to open them up. It might mean that the plastic may be getting brittle with time, not sure. Inside the switch is a metal spring tab that's clipped onto an assembly that houses the contacts. I tried to take the housing apart to better clean the contacts, but unfortunately it appears it can't be opened without cutting the plastic pins that have been molten to hold it together. I didn't want to risk damaging anything permanently, so I opted to clean all the internal components using just compressed air. After I had cleaned up the first switch and put it back together, I wanted to see what sort of contact resistance I was getting while pushing down on the plunger. And nothing. Oh, that's why. Stupid me forgot to put the springy tab back on. Okay, now with the tab back on, it worked, but it had very inconsistent contact, and if I wiggled it back and forth, the resistance changed a lot. This is definitely part of the reason the keys sometimes register more than one key press. I figured the springy tab may have a say in the matter, and so I tried bending it out just a tiny little bit so that when the plunger goes in, it puts a little more pressure on the contacts. And this actually worked pretty well. Being happy with that, this is how I went about cleaning all the switches, also checking each one after cleaning. There are only 2 switches on the keyboard that are slightly different than the rest. The reset switch, which is pretty much identical to the rest except for the fact that it has a slightly shorter shaft, No shame in that. And the caps lock switch, which has a latching action. The latching action is done by using a short rod that locks the plunger in place along with the spring plate that puts pressure against it to make it work properly. Before cleaning the caps lock switch, it felt scratchy and didn't respond very well unless I put a good amount of pressure on it. It was much better after cleaning it and lightly lubricating the latching mechanism. It doesn't take very much pressure to get it to latch and release anymore. After putting all the switches back onto the clean top plate and realizing I accidentally put a couple of them on in the wrong orientation, I could then reattach the board and solder every pin back onto it. There's no footage of it, but to clean all the dirty keys, I soaked them all in a small tub using Simple Green and diluted slightly with water, and they came out looking pretty good. The space key seems to be made of a slightly different plastic and looks more yellowed than any of the other keys, but at least it's cleaner. Also, I forgot to put the springs back onto the reset and space keys when I was reassembling it. They're on now, though. While cleaning the keyboard ribbon cable, I noticed that it had some slight abrasion damage in one part of it. It appears that it may have gotten caught between the chassis and the cover at some point. Fortunately, it doesn't appear that the wires are seriously damaged, and all the keys respond, so I'm not too worried about it. I just made sure it's tucked in where it can't get damaged any further. Removing all the now shifted rubber pads off both drives before cleaning the case parts. I didn't expect anything weird while cleaning the drives, and certainly the first drive had nothing crazy going on. Just a bit dusty and grimy exterior and a little dusty on the inside. Again, just used some Simple Green spray and rags to clean the external parts, and I dusted the insides with brushes and air. The drives have some vents that are internally lined with some paper material, so I carefully dusted them with a toothbrush while supporting from the rear so that they didn't get damaged. Drive 1 was the dirtier of the two drives, but a side-by-side comparison between a clean Drive 1 and a still dirty Drive 2 shows just how dirty Drive 1 originally was. Drive 2 looks way worse in comparison now. It's even noticeable on the ribbon cables. Okay, so Drive 1 is clean, but what's in Drive 2? I didn't expect to see much, considering all the screws were still attached on the bottom, unlike Drive 1. However, upon opening Drive 2, pieces of paper towels? No clue how these pieces got into the thing. Okay, weird. But let's go ahead and keep taking the drive apart. There's a clip on the ribbon cable connector that I realized it's missing on Drive 1, and the retainer for the ribbon cable has detached from the back. It's not too dusty inside, and there had been a spider inside at some point, so I'm not, evicting it or anything. All right, let's see what's underneath the drive mechanism and inspect the belt. More paper towels. The belt looks fine, though. We can see how much dirtier the computer case is compared to the now clean drives and the relatively clean monitor. I wanted to see how clean the case could get by first spraying some Simple Green on the top cover and scrubbing it with a toothbrush. It could definitely get considerably cleaner. Except I wasn't about to try to clean the entire thing with a toothbrush. So I got out a relatively soft drill brush attachment and went to town on the thing using a somewhat low speed and light pressure so as not to damage the surface. It went from this to this. I didn't use the brush attachment to clean the emblems, but it appears that some of the paint on the Apple emblem must have already been starting to flake, as it didn't take much to detach it when I tried to wipe it clean. Regarding the feet on the drives, it looked like maybe they could be salvaged and reattached using new double-sided adhesive, but when trying to clean them up just to see how well that would work, the rubber started getting really sticky. So I decided not to risk it, just got some new rubber pads instead. They measure an odd 0.78 inch by 0.26 inch. I got these on Amazon as I couldn't find anything suitably sized at our local hardware store. They don't have the same curvature that the originals did, but they'll have to do. When attaching the new pads to the bottom of the drives, I made sure that they were spaced out front to back just right to fit inside the cavity on the top side of the computer. It turned out pretty good, and the alignment is just mwah. Now that everything was clean and the case was ready to put back onto the chassis, we still needed 5 more speed nuts in order to fully secure the two parts together. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything suitable on hand, and I tried searching online for something that could work. Using both the terms speed nuts and clip nuts, I came up empty handed, and so I resorted to making my own. I began by using the most accurate calipers I had to make some precise measurements of one of the existing speed nuts. Turns out they measure close to 10 millimeters in length and 8 millimeters in width, with a hole spacing about 4.6 millimeters in from the open end of the nut. Using some 26 gauge sheet metal, which is a bit thicker than what the original nuts are made of, I cut an 8 millimeter wide strip that would be used to make the 5 missing nuts. I now had a fun spiral fidget toy. Okay, enough of that. The strip was more than enough to cut several smaller strips of 20 millimeters long each, and each 20 millimeter strip got a mark at 10 millimeters in, where the bend would be made. Using a metal bracket I just happened to have on the bench, that was about the same thickness as the plastic the nuts would clip onto. I used some pliers to fully bend the new clips to size. Some people might recognize what this bracket is from. Using the calipers, each new clip got a centering mark 4 millimeters in from the side edge and 4.6 millimeters in from the open end. Using a center punch, the clips got a dimple to help center the drill bit. The smaller one measuring about 1.7 millimeters, which would be used to make the hole the screw would thread into, and a larger 4 millimeter bit that would let the screw go through. Using a block of wood to support the bracket with the clip attached, I drilled both the small hole, which would go through both layers of the clip, and then the larger hole, which only goes through the first layer. To prevent the screws from trying to twist the new clips too hard, I decided to make slots on the clips, similar to the ones on the existing clips. This would allow the metal to deform and fit the angle of the spiral thread on the screws. I made the slots using an old flathead screwdriver that I had no emotional attachment to, tapping it with the hammer just enough to break through the sides of the holes in the sheet metal. I didn't want to pound it too hard and excessively enlarge the holes. Once that was done, I pre-threaded each clip by holding it with pliers and putting a screw through each one. This caused some deformation, but nothing that couldn't be straightened out easily. The completed clips had some protruding sharp pieces that could easily be clipped off, just to make them slightly less finger shredding. Finished product is not awesome, but it's definitely not terrible. Having all 5 completed, it was just a matter of sliding them onto the case and putting the chassis back on and securing all 9 new screws. It actually worked out great, and all the screws feel very securely attached. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The only other thing the computer needed on the bottom was the new rubber pads, which are the same size as the ones on the drives. Ooh, much better. It would be nice if the disk drives had a connector that plugged in on the back of the machine, but the way these are designed, the ribbon cables go into slots on the back of the chassis, and they are held on with the screwed-on aluminum brackets. Unfortunately, I seem to only have one of the brackets on hand and no clue where the other one went. Hopefully I find it at some point, because I haven't found it as of recording and editing, if that's what I'm saying right now. The second drive ribbon is just gonna have to sit there until I figure out something for it. So all of that work brings us to now. The machine actually appears to be fully functional, and I went online to try to find, maybe like a little short snippet of basic game code that I could type all in and to try to see if, the machine would do anything. And I did come across somebody's, it was like sort of like a Pong-like game project. And the code was relatively short. And so I took the time to type it all in, and I finally got it working. But when I loaded it up, it was like, it ran slow. It was like molasses.
Holy crap, that's slow.
So, but at least that kind of showed me that the computer could do something. So then I remembered that you can actually load software onto these machines using a tape input on the back. And since I don't have like any other software that I could, pop a disk into or whatever, I decided to try to do that. And I came across a website where there's like a list of games on the side that you can select from, and then they have various different audio files that you can play depending on which sort of mode you're using the machine in, and whether or not you're having like audio issues, in going into the machine. So I did that. I had to make a cable though because I didn't have one, and the cable just has a 3-conductor uh, plug on one side, and then on the other side I have a like a mono a plug, and I had to make it because I didn't have anything similar on hand. So I'm only using the tip and the sleeve on the stereo end, and that's going to plug into whatever audio source I'm plugging it into, and then the mono end plugs into the computer. And I did that because that way I don't short out the output on whatever I'm playing in. In this case, I was using a laptop to load stuff into it. So I tried various different settings, like volume settings and the different audio types. I could not get the machine to do anything. And I also had to look up how to even do it because I had never done it before. And so I had no experience with it whatsoever. But it turns out all you have to do is type in load at the basic prompt, and then the machine will start listening to the tape input. And I also had to, look up to see what the actual process was because, once again, I had no experience with it. So what it's supposed to do is once you type in load, the computer starts listening. You push play on your device that you're playing the audio from, and after a few seconds, the machine is supposed to make a beep. And after that beep, it continues loading the software until it eventually gets to the point where, something starts running, and, you'll see it come up on the monitor or whatever. Well, I was getting none of that. So I started thinking that maybe there was something wrong with the hardware. And so I looked up a schematic for this machine, and luckily I came across one like fairly quickly. So I went to the page that had the cassette input diagrams, and it turns out that the input goes directly to a capacitor and then through a resistor and into an op amp. So the output of the op amp being pin number 6, I took my scope probe and I, touched pin number 6 just to see what was going on. And I was getting like basically almost like a 5-volt line that once I started playing the audio would occasionally kind of like dip just a tiny little bit, but it looked very erratic and it did not look like any sort of a bit stream of any sort or a, clock or anything. So I thought, well, that can't be good because I was getting audio into the jack. I did probe that. So I knew that something was getting to the chip, but nothing was coming out of the chip. So I thought maybe the chip is bad. So I pulled the chip out of the socket, flipped it over, and realized that pin number 4 was bent inwards. So at some point when I was cleaning the board and I took all the chips out, and cleaned them up a bit, when I stuck it back in, pin number 4 just got bent inward somehow. And I didn't even notice it because I didn't feel like any resistance or anything. So yeah, that was kind of a bit of an easy fix. So I just straightened out the pin, popped it back into its socket, and then tried it again. And this time I could see that I was getting something out of pin number 6 and something that looked like actual data. It was, dropping down to 0 volts, going back up to 5. And it looked like, square data, or not square data, but like an actual like square pulse. So now when I was trying to load an audio, file into it, this time I would get a beep, but I kept getting error on the screen. And no matter what I did, I could set like different volume levels. I would set, try a different audio file. I tried different games. I could not get it to do anything. It would always give me the error. Every once in a while, it would pop up like it looked like register values from the CPU on the screen. So that's about as much as I could get it to do. So I started doing a little bit more searching online, and I came across a post on a website, which I do not remember right now off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up. But somebody there mentioned that you should disable any audio processing on the headphone jack, of the PC or whatever you're using to play back the audio. And so the laptop I was using to try to do this is running Windows 11. And I went into the audio settings and into the headphone settings, and sure enough, there was a setting there that has something to do with processing audio to the headphones. And it said, something about effects. So I disabled it, tried it again, and this time it freaking worked flawlessly. So I'm able to pretty much load any of the games on that list using the hi-fi mode, which is the faster mode, which for most of the games, it only takes about like high 20s to like 30 seconds. And there's also like the lo-fi mode, which ends up taking like almost like a minute and a half to like close to 2 minutes, depending on the game. So the hi-fi mode is definitely the faster mode. And with that shut off and everything working properly and the volume set properly, like things load up like relatively quickly. So right now, as you can see, I've got a Burger Time loaded and it works pretty well. I can't, I don't have any issues with it. I wanted to see what the difference was between the output from the laptop having that processing or effect setting on versus having it off. And so I did some captures with the oscilloscope. And when we have the audio effects on, we can kind of see that the waveform coming out of the laptop has like these sort of like dips where it seems like the audio volume doesn't quite go as high or low as it's supposed to. And so I'm pretty sure that that's what's causing data problems getting to the computer. But once we turn that setting off, now the audio is swings up and down between. I mean, it depends on the volume that you have it set at. I basically have it set to close to about like 2 volts peak to peak, but we can see that the audio, the waveform basically swings between the two extremes, and so that makes it so that the data getting to the machine is what it's supposed to be. It doesn't accidentally interpret sort of in between value as something that it's not supposed to be. So I'm actually pretty excited that the machine appears to be working properly. I'm even wearing a similar colored matching shirt. Everything is nice and clean, and it all seems pretty functional. My only sort of little complaint that I have now is that I guess because I tightened up those little like spring plates inside of each key, some of the keys are slightly too sensitive. Like you can just basically brush your finger across the top of it and just barely move it, and it'll register as a press. But I'm not getting like multiple key presses now. So if I like push a key, I don't have any of that bounce, and it doesn't do like multiple of the same key input on like text or whatever. So at least that's good. The shift key on the right side was binding a little bit, but I think just from exercising it, it doesn't seem to be binding anymore. So I think it just needed to sort of like settle down a little bit, and now it's fine. As you may or may not have noticed, we're getting pretty close to closing off this video. And no, I have not actually forgotten about the REFA capacitors. So I ended up rounding up a few materials, and I ended up building a little contraption that I could comfortably rest them on so that I could safely place the capacitors somewhere away from where I was going to be standing and then run power to them. I could plug it in. And so I did that, and I set up a few cameras just to, get the action from like various angles. But unfortunately, the capacitors just refused to release their magical electrical fumes. So I don't have any footage of them going up in smoke, but I'll keep trying, and I'll try to record some footage. The problem is that I have to let them sit there for a long time recording action that may or may not happen. So I end up with a bunch of footage that I can't use for anything. So once I actually get something, maybe I'll post a short or something. But that's the state of that. I just could not get them to do anything. So at this point, I think this is where we're going to end this video. The machine is mostly complete other than the fact that I'm missing that bracket for disk drive number 2, which I'm hoping that I'll eventually like find in a bin of stuff somewhere. Hopefully it still exists in my possession. If not, I may have to end up either looking to get a replacement somehow or trying to make something to replace it, which would be considerably a little bit more difficult than making those clip nuts that I made for the case itself. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But for now, if you're watching this before VCF SoCal 2026, I will be taking this machine there. So if you happen to be watching the video and you want to stop by and check it out, I will have it on display. And so for now, I think I'm just going to sit here and build some burgers, run away from these wieners and eggs. And yeah, I will. Thank you all for watching once again. I'll see you guys around the bench. Sorry, I thought I was done for there for a second, but I'm still good. Still good. Spray. I'm using up all my pepper. No. Okay, I got this one done. There we go. 4 burgers to go.